ladies and gentlemen. Salutations and a good morning to you all. I would like to thank the organizer for this opportunity to exchanging information and experiences with the CM, colleagues and counterparts in the private sector. Let me start this presentation by quoting the Asia-Pacific Telecommunity, or APT, an intergovernmental organization in cooperation with telco service providers, and with the support of equipment suppliers and R&D companies in ICT, in saying that the development of telecommunications and ICT infrastructure is a major challenge for many countries in the Asia-Pacific region. Whilst many APT member countries are making huge efforts to bring telecommunications and ICT facilities to their people at an affordable price, there are many key issues in the areas of policy, technology, applications, resource mobilization, the list goes on, that need to be addressed for effective deployment. Thanks to strong government and private sector partnerships for the all-important investment capital in the telecommunications sector, Asia has networks and infrastructure supporting a total of more than 1 billion internet users as of June 2012, or at least 27.5% penetration rate per 100 inhabitants of the world population. According to the internetworldstats.com, Asia's developed markets have been moving quickly to build their new generation networks, or NGNs, with IP shaping to be the primary delivery platform for telecom services across the region. It can be noted that despite the general economic uncertainty prevailing in the region, after an annual growth of close to 30% in the region's mobile market in 2008, Asia's mid-2009 growth was still up at around 20%. The governments across Asia today have long acknowledged the need of encouragement of private sector investment to further develop the telecommunications infrastructure in the region, rethinking roles and business models that would inevitably mean a substantial level of investment, whether foreign or local. Notably, the ecosystem surrounding infrastructure is extensive and almost includes everything from major telecommunications equipment manufacturers, service providers, and application developers. Take cloud computing, for example, of the evolution of the application service provider, which is now being considered by many companies and agencies, whether private or government sector. This can further generalize into infrastructure as a service, IaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, and application as a service, SaaS. The presence of telecom infrastructure triggered the telecommunications equipment manufacturers to introduce various smart ICT devices and gadgets, from tablets to smartphones, capable of directly handling or receiving next-generation network applications and services. Thanks to the presence of the mobile broadband infrastructure, we can now access the internet and check emails, even at the park, malls, and outside buildings. Given the economic benefits of broadband, making broadband services available and affordable for all has become vital for economic growth and social welfare. This is true considering the 2009 World Bank study has shown that for every 10% increase in broadband penetration, teledensity boosts GDP by an average of 1.3%. And every 10% increase in mobile teledensity results in an average of 0.7 increase in GDP. To date, the private sector has been successful in providing efficient and equitable broadband infrastructure, simply by considering technological evolution and evaluating the most appropriate mix of broadband technologies, whether fixed or mobile. Many countries today are taking advantage of available spectrum for mobile broadband to span vast distances, covering large areas at a significantly lower price point. Investing in broadband is a complex challenge. Thus, there is a need to address infrastructure layers separately from a policy and financing perspective, rather than using a one-size-fits-all approach. Consider that a network is composed of 3 distinct layers, with very different characteristics in respect to their cost and return on investment. The first layer, the passive layer, civil works and dark fiber, can account for up to 80% of the cost and has a payback period of approximately 15 years. The second is the active infrastructure layer, where the intelligence of the network concentrates and has a rate of return of 5 to 7 years. The service layer has a very different cost structure and a much shorter rate of return. Different sources of financing are best suited to different types of investment in different network layers characterized by different payback periods. Following the strong growth of mobile cellular markets, mobile broadband markets across Asia are expected to continue to expand in the near future. With the telecommunications infrastructure markets saturating and the impact of the shaky global economy still being felt, it is not surprising that the remaining billion of the world's population will be connected via mobile broadband. Asia makes a strong claim to be leading the world when it comes to combining both fixed and mobile broadband internet. There has been much hype about Internet of Things. The idea of a globally interconnected range of devices, objects, and things emerged with the RFID technology. This has also considerably been extended to the current vision that foresees an abundance of various objects interacting between people and the physical environment for everyday life. Mobile broadband penetration has clearly enabled ubiquitous computing, in which information processing has been thoroughly integrated into everyday objects and activities, almost without borders. Undoubtedly, the massive deployment of fixed and mobile broadband infrastructure in Asia takes a big slice of the global market. In fact, it contributed around 49% of the world's mobile subscribers and broadband markets. Based on 2012 data shown here, courtesy of Internet World Stats, there are around 34.3% of the world's population, or more than 2.4 billion out of the 7 billion people in the world, are using the Internet. And notably, Asia represents 44.8%, or around 1.1 billion people, of the world's Internet users, compared to the 55.2%, or about 1.3 billion people, for the rest of the world, making Asia clearly a top leader in the world of telecommunications. The deployment of both fixed and mobile infrastructure worldwide can easily be quantified and analyzed using these key global telecom indicators as monitored by the ITU. It can be noted, as shown in the table, building of fixed line infrastructure was not far advanced before it was overwhelmed by the introduction of mobile infrastructure. In Asia, for example, only 13.8 per 100 inhabitants have subscribed to fixed telephone lines, compared to an overwhelming 76.7 per 100 inhabitants subscribed to mobile cellular services in the region. Asia has progressively built substantial national mobile networks and remain competitive to the rest of the world in terms of mobile cellular provision. Yet, in spite of the existing broadband market activities in the region, Asia's performance in key ICT indicators shows that there remains a big gap or divide in broadband penetration. And the major reason is due to the non-availability of the broadband connectivity in the area. From a global perspective, Asia and the Pacific is the second to the lowest when it comes both for mobile cellular and active mobile broadband subscriptions. In the case of the ASEAN countries, which is around 9% of the world's population, around about 600 million, the region averages about 99 per 100 inhabitants for mobile cellular subscription, but only averaging 5.2 per 100 inhabitants when it comes to fixed broadband subscriptions. The ASEAN Telmin leaders, recognizing the crucial role that ICT would play in building the foundation for ASEAN integration by 2050, adopted the ASEAN ICT Master Plan, or AIM 2015, in the early quarter of 2011. With its vision towards an empowering and transformational ICT, creating an inclusive, vibrant, and integrated ASEAN. The ASEAN ICT Master Plan 2015 employs 6 strategic thrusts. The first 3 serve as its pillars, which focus on 1. Economic transformation to promote trade and investment and entrepreneurship to the ICT sector. People empowerment and engagement to enhance the quality of life through affordable and equitable ICT. And 3. Innovation to nurture a creative, innovative, and green ICT sector. The last 3 thrusts focus on building foundations on 4. Infrastructure development, such that ASEAN will develop ICT infrastructure to support the provision of services to all ASEAN communities. 5. Human capital development, such that ASEAN will develop competent and skilled human capital in ICT to support the growth of the ASEAN ICT sector and help transform other sectors of the economy. And finally, 6. Bridging the digital divide, such that ASEAN will address the varying levels of ICT development and adoption within individual countries and across the region. ASEAN will also focus on bridging other gaps within the digital divide to promote greater adoption of ICT. Driven by these 6 strategic thrusts, the plan is designed to deliver 4 key outcomes. ICT as an engine of growth for ASEAN countries. ICT will be one of the key economic sectors in ASEAN, as well as an enabler to increase competitiveness for other industry sectors. 2. Recognition of ASEAN as a global ICT hub. ASEAN will distinguish itself as a region of high-quality ICT infrastructure, skilled manpower, and technological innovation. 3. Enhance the quality of life for the peoples of ASEAN. The pervasive adoption of ICT will provide the peoples of ASEAN the means to be engaged, relevant, and informed, which will have a profound impact on the way people live, work, and play. And 4. Contribution towards ASEAN integration. ICT will foster greater collaboration amongst ASEAN businesses, citizens, leading to the integration of ASEAN. Accordingly, in consideration to the smooth implementation of the master plan, the Philippines, as host of the ASEAN 12th Telmin meeting, came up with a theme, Connected ASEAN, Enabling Aspirations. The ASEAN ICT Master Plan 2015 framework has enabled us to do the following initiatives. In infrastructure development, setting up an ASEAN Infrastructure Task Force. This initiative aims to provide a whole strategic plan in implementing all infrastructure-related issues, which include the ASEAN Internet Exchange, the ASEAN Gateway, and the ASEAN Submarine Cable System. This will go beyond the national activities to map out the regional strategies to ensure the readiness in implementing the above-mentioned activities and projects. The second is initializing the ASEAN Broadband Corridor and ASEAN Internet Exchange. The ASEAN Broadband Corridor aimed to identify and develop locations in each member state which offer quality broadband connectivity to enable seamless usage of broadband services and applications across ASEAN. And ASEAN Internet Exchange is aimed to facilitate peering amongst ASEAN Internet access providers to improve latency and speed, as well as lower cost. The second initiative, establishment of the ASEAN Network Security Action Council to promote computer emergency response team cooperation amongst ASEAN nations, and generally cybersecurity, network security, and data security. The next, under bridging the digital divide, we have setting up the ASEAN BDD, or Bridging the Digital Divide Task Force. which is responsible to review and recommend, and whenever requested, to implement necessary policy initiatives, measures and projects to achieve the objectives embodied in the strategic thrust 6, bridging the digital divide. The next, a comprehensive review of the universal service frameworks in ASEAN and inclusion of broadband into universal service provision. This initiative focuses on the review of the existing USO or similar policies of each ASEAN's member state, with a view to include IT components and training, and to ensure that infrastructure covered under USO or similar programs should be broadband internet capable. Prioritizing community access and rollout to schools. Under this initiative, the ASEAN countries aim to connect schools and collaborate between ICT and education sectors within ASEAN and advocate early ICT education, particularly in remote communities. Participation in lively discussions at the ITU is also among them. As part of the ASEAN ICT Master Plan implementation, each member state is committed to prioritize the following projects and initiatives. The ASEAN Telco Infrastructure Task Force, formulation of protection regime for submarine and terrestrial cable systems within ASEAN. This project came as a result of the earlier study conducted on submarine cable protection among ASEAN nations to simplify issuing of permits related to inter-region installation and restoration activities of both submarine and terrestrial cable systems among ASEAN nations, and to completion and operationalization of the ASEAN broadband corridor and the ASEAN Internet Exchange. ASEAN countries are also in the process of studying the digital dividend in conjunction to the region's transition to digital broadcasting, the target of which is 2015. In the area of network and information security, it is our plan, 1, to establish common framework for network security, defining common minimum standards to ensure a level of preparedness and integrity of networks among ASEAN. And 2, continue to conduct awareness on cybercrime and cybersecurity, thus sharing best practices and encouraging enactment of relevant laws. To further bridge the digital divide among ASEAN, particularly the broadband availability in rural areas. 1, ASEAN will continue to study and manage to maximize usage of available spectrum for mobile broadband deployment. Similarly, we will continue to promote broadband connectivity to schools and rural communities using TV white space technology and new emerging technologies. ICT development in ASEAN has evolved at a phenomenal pace since its formative years. There is a new era of ICT brought about by the advancement and application of ICT in almost every facet of our working and social lives. In ASEAN today, ICT is a growth industry employing more than 11.7 million people, contributing more than 32 billion, or more than 3% of ASEAN's gross domestic product. This is projected to grow significantly by 2015. ASEAN ICT industry has been able to create around 11.7 million employment, and it has contributed to IT-enabled service industries worldwide. As an example, the Philippine IP BPO has grown to become a global leader, generating around $11 billion in direct revenue for 2011. For 2012, it's already at $16 billion. The estimated revenue for non-IT BPO is around $27.5 billion for 2011. With as I mentioned before, with every 10% in broadband penetration contributes about 1.3 increase in GDP growth. The Philippines registered at least its all-time high of 7.1% GDP growth and continuing record highs for the Philippines Stock Exchange today. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have done so much in bridging the digital divide, either in our own individual government's efforts or through collaborations and partnerships with international bodies. Yet, there are still a lot of things to do to achieve our development goals. It is reassuring to note that we have the governments, the private sector, and the international and regional bodies with us in every step of the way to achieving the dream, the integrated economic region and internet-connected world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kasama.
Day.com, connecting dreams.